A very good evening, everyone, and a warm welcome to all of you to our sixth conversation under the series 21 Marching. I am Sonika Aaron, managing partner of Marching Sheep, which is an HR consulting firm. So, today we are going to talk about visual impairment. The number of visually impaired in India is estimated at 62 million. Of these, 54 million persons have low vision and 8 million are blind. Today, we have with us Ankit Rajiv Jindal, a marketing professional, innovator, influencer, a disabilities rights activist, and a visually impaired social entrepreneur. A person with 100% visual disability, Ankit has over 15 years of diversified experience of working at the corporate and disability sector. He wears multiple hats and with aplomb. As a youth icon, Ankit has represented India at United Nations in 2015. At the corporate, he works as a marketing specialist in a Fortune 500 conglomerate, a serial social entrepreneur, and he's going to share about what fabulous work he's doing in that space. Ankit has been the founding member of three impact organizations, namely Friends for Inclusion, an NGO he set up with a vision to empower people with disabilities to live with independence, confidence, and dignity. DEOC, a social enterprise that works to access audits and make workplaces more inclusive for people with disabilities, and formally with Kickstart Cabs, a mobility enterprise that provide accessible cab service for people with disabilities. As an avid assistive technology user and a budding innovator, Ankit has developed Mera Mitra, first of its kind AI powered chatbot for people with disabilities to overcome information barrier, and Signar AI, a computer program that aims to bridge communication barrier for people with speech and hearing impairment. As an expert in disability rights and policy, Ankit was also invited to the Data User Conference by Census Commission, Ministry of Home Affairs in 2019, following which he led a national consultation and submitted a report on making Census 2021 more inclusive for people with disability. Further, he was nominated by Election Commission Karnataka to National Consultation for Accessible Elections and Make Elections Inclusive for People with Disabilities, and by Ministry for Electronics and Information Technology for the inauguration of CSR portal by Prime Minister Narendra Modi in 2018. He is a member of the National Committee for the Rights of People with Disabilities. He's smiling. He's smiling so calmly. He's saying, "Yes, go on. There's still lots to come." A think tank set up by NCPEDP, where he has been a key contributor in the areas of disability rights and policy, data on disability, integration of disability with SDGs and RPWD Act. As an industry speaker, he has participated in 40 plus national and international conferences, forums including those hosted by United Nations, Disabled People International, and Global Initiative for Inclusive Information and Communication Technology, National Association for Software and Services, which is NASCOM. Ankit has co authored a value route to business success, an HR manual developed by CII, and has authored 10 plus articles published in print and digital platforms across publications like The Hindu, Mint, and Healthcare India. He has an MBA degree from FMS, one of the leading premier institutes in India, and has been the recipient of Helen Keller Awards, where he was recognized as a national role model in India, and has been featured in 40 plus media stories, including in the Times of India, Hindustan Times, Indian Express, Times Now, CNN IBN, and All India Radio, and has been featured in one best selling book, Gifted, 15 Inspiring Stories of People with Disabilities. Ankit,
Yes.
it's a
Thank you.
first
Firstly,
to everyone.
firstly, thank you so much for the elaborate introduction. I think I've never received an introduction like this. So thank you so much. And really thank you for having me here. I think it's a very humbling experience.
Uh, how can you feel humble with that list of achievements? Carrying all of them. I mean, I took a sigh after I read them all. I am so in awe of you. It's awesome, honestly. I how does it feel?
To be honest, for me, I still feel like a novice, somebody who's just getting started, and there's so much more to do. I think whatever has happened, and again, I really don't reflect much about it. I think I was just chosen to kind of perform some of these things.
Yeah. Okay, so let's start from the beginning, right?
Hmm.
So firstly, tell us about your condition for
Right.
our audience. Yeah.
Hmm. So I have a condition called retinitis pigmentosa. This is a degenerative condition. It so a person kind of starts losing the ability to see over a period of time. So
Mm,
I actually was born with, say, normal sight, quote unquote normal, and I think it was 13 years old. I was in about seventh or eighth standard where I was first diagnosed with this condition.
mm,
Uh, because I started not to see the blackboard and I had difficulty reading it. And especially
mm,
when you have those tests, right, in the school, those eye tests, I couldn't read the
mm,
last two lines. So that's what kind of made my parents worried. And we went to a doctor and he confirmed that it is this. And for me, over a period of time, kind of I've been losing sight. And now that I'm like, in my mid 30s, I've kind of lost most of my sight. And
mm,
yeah, it's been like a roller coaster journey, if I would say.
mm.
But yeah, I
So,
think
so at 13, you found out, and
yes.
if I may ask, how long did it take for the condition to progress to 100% disability, visual impairment?
So like I like if I would say from a functionality point of view, I started losing major functionalities very early in my life, especially for instance the ability to read on my own, right, which was a very important aspect as far as my education is concerned.
Mm,
I couldn't read after my 12th. Like till 12th also I managed with a magnifying glass and it was really tough
mm,
with them. But after that it was quite literally I was hearing or absorbing content from the environment and then possibly kind of giving my exams or whatever it is, right?
mm,
So there was a switch there, and then slowly my mobility in some ways started getting impacted. Although then I kind of learned and adapted myself to a new lifestyle. So for me, to a long answer short, I think I lost most of my vision by 30s, but yeah, there were major functionality loss before that which
mm,
affected my day-to-day living, be it reading or independent mobility or many other things. These small things like social gathering. I couldn't understand who's coming in, like I couldn't identify faces.
Right.
Now, it was tough. People would pursue me, rude, arrogant, and there were people who knew, like they're from my friend circle, they knew my condition, but then somehow they still couldn't understand, and I was kind of construed as rude. But yeah, these
Right.
have been, my kind of partners for many, many years now.
Right. So, tell me, how did you cope with it, with the knowledge that this was happening for a young child of 13, 14 years old, and it was happening progressively. You were dealing with
Yes.
it not just physically. There was a
Mm,
physical manifestation, and then there were challenges which were coming in day to day operations, in day to day activities, and then there were these challenges of coping with the social interactions. How did you cope with this?
um, I think personally, what first thing what really helped me was my immediate family. My parents kind of really were a source of strength for me. Like they never put me under any pressure. They then said, "Okay, you have to do so much in your education," or they never kind of dissuaded me away from education. Also, so they said, "You decide, and we are there with you."
Mm.
I did have a bit of kind of somebody to look after. So this is like a genetic condition. So a few of my aunts and uncle had this condition.
Okay.
So I could see them. There was okay. I knew what is happening, right? But of
Mm.
course, there was as a young person who's growing up, and I had my own aspirations to do so many more things. I could see all that going away, fading away. I
Mm.
couldn't drive. I couldn't do so many things which I wanted, like any other teenager would want to do.
Mm.
So it was tough. There was a phase where I was into this whole self pity mode, also, if I would say that. But
Mm.
then somewhere you had to push yourself and keep, start accepting. And I
Mm.
started saying to myself, "Ki one, Ankit, you need to accept yourself and do not expect anything from the society." I think these two were my mantras as far as my teenagers and early 20s is concerned. I just kind of started accepting myself. I didn't start, I stopped feeling sorry for myself. There were abundant of challenges, right? Like there was no accessibility, there were no books in the right format. Forget about availability, we didn't even were aware of it. As
Mm.
a family, even we had this condition, but we weren't really aware of these solutions for people with vision disability. The
Mm.
most my family had heard about is Braille, and there was such a big stigma on learning Braille, right? So at that time, it was a big problem, and and parents would not take us to NGOs or and find actively look out for solutions.
Sorry,
Uh,
one second. You said there is stigma to learning Braille.
in the non-disabled community, it
Okay.
is not so much with me today. How I wish I knew Braille when
Mm.
in my early childhood. But
Okay.
as parents or as family members or extended family members, there was a stigma, right? Like the society tries to fit you in being a so-called normal or a non-disabled person. They want you to kind of live like that and try
Mm.
to adjust and fit in,
Mm.
which I think is a very counterproductive move as far as
Mm.
society is concerned, because you kill some of the possibly the skills and abilities by force fitting them.
Mm.
Now, so that's how kind of happened, and it took me a long while, right? Only after my graduation I got to know about technology, and when I kind of got access to it, I think I always say technology gave me wings.
Mm.
And it was a learning curve. Back then there weren't many NGOs. In fact, some, it is so amazing, like one of the NGOs actually told me not to use technology. I don't know
Mm.
why they did they say that, but yeah, I am glad that I never listened to them and I invested my time on technology. And that was the only, I would say, the biggest change in my life, which gave me
Mm,
wings, which made me productive, employable, that gave me the confidence back that I can do my ambition of, kind of doing MBA in a top 10B school. And I was glad that I could make it through FMS and do whatever else I could do. But
mm,
yeah, there were several structural barrier. There were, I think, attitude. And you and I were discussing how teachers and parents, and I think our society never had that exposure for disability, right? If you
mm,
go back in 90s, you'll recall a disability was showcased either as like crooked villains, right?
mm,
And many of our adaptations like Mahabharata also showed people with disabilities as villain, be it
mm,
Shakuni, be it Dhritarashtra, और they were object of charity. मेरे घर में एक बूढ़ी माँ और एक अंधा भाई, right? These were
mm,
like patent. So our
mm,
society was trained or systematically coached to see disability in a very negative way,
mm,
and so be it my friends, they would not play with me, or if I play cricket with them, they'll keep calling me andha. I had, I couldn't maintain an eye contact, so they would call me Kana, and then there were so many things. Uh, my personal confidence and self worth as a growing up definitely took a lot of hit at that time. But yeah, and that led to a lot of social isolation also. You stop mingling, I stopped making friends, I stopped engaging. So it kind of reflects on, in the long term in your personality also.
mm.
So yeah, these were some of the barriers as I kind of grew up, and uh, you know,
So tell me, yes, you and I were talking about that, while we cannot blame the children because children learn from their elders and,
mm,
um, uh, the parents and the educators. And so, yeah, we've had these conversations in the earlier conversations as well with other people that there is a gap there. Maybe the acceptance or the willingness to get out of comfort zone, or the tolerance maybe.
mm,
I don't know which is it. Maybe just, uh, is it discomfort? I really don't know. I don't understand it, because I sometimes wonder who defines normal, right?
yeah.
uh, yeah. Anyways, so you said that, technology gave you wings. How
Yes.
did you stumble upon technology? uh, so
So I, as during my like graduation days, I heard about it. Like one of my
yeah.
uncle also mentioned about it. He used to travel to the US and the Europe very often, but somehow I never got my hands over it.
Mm,
It wasn't after my graduation. I kind of got to know that one of these NGOs, big NGOs for the blind, they had this computer program which has come to them. They don't have trainers for them, but then they have the software available. So I just
mm,
kind of went them and I asked them, okay, do you have the software and can you copy it in a CD for me? And they said, yeah, you do it, but Ankit, I don't, because they themselves were not aware of technology. They didn't had many people working with them with technology back then. They said, we don't know how helpful it be. Don't put much of a time there. You actually start, you could join some of our courses, the skill building courses that we have, like basket weaving or, the other courses that they had, So I said, maybe you might be right in your, assessment, but let me come back to you once. Let me give it a shot. And I did this. Fortunately,
so
that was the time also. It coincided that I completed my graduation and I got a campus placement from Infosys, right?
let
Now,
me put you
yeah, yeah.
with all due respect to NGOs, and I'm sure they mean well,
Hmm.
but don't you think this is also a kind of stereotype wherein they feel um, that there is this person with visual impairment,
Hmm.
and the kind of course or the skill that this person can be trained in is basket weaving?
Yeah, and I think that's true. And I think NGOs sometimes kind of are always caught in this in this cycle, right? They want to impact many beneficiaries, and they create like a factory model, and then where there's sometimes not enough room for individual attention, right? Or exploring their own potential and what people can do. Even today, if you see, while there are few NGOs which are doing fantastic job and trying to really match person's ability and aspirations with job, there are many who kind of fits you in with what has
Mm,
worked now, right?
mm,
So there's this whole run to make a lot of blind people just accessibility testers, or or some of those jobs where they have been a success stories.
mm,
Now, I know that there have been instances where there's a friend who's actually done a CS, and but then she's been moved into accessibility because she was not given enough roles or opportunities in in her original area of skill. So
mm,
it it's kind of there again, right? NGOs also need to kind of match up, and I think uh, there is a lot of need and gaps at various places, and really some of these good NGOs are only available in your top, say, metros, right? Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, and maybe the other next five major cities. The moment you go to the heartland, again, it's a very sorry story. They still don't know about technology. They don't still don't know about so many more things.
mm, mm.
So
Okay.
yeah, it's a
Adjust
very
your camera. Adjust your camera now. I can see it up
okay.
to your
Sorry.
chin. No
Okay,
worries.
I'm so sorry.
Huh. Okay. Now, coming back to, okay, you were telling me that you got your hands on the software. So, sorry, what's the software called?
It's called JAWS, JAWS.
Okay. Huh. So, and that also coincided with the time that you had completed your graduation.
Yes.
Huh.
So I it coincided with that, and I had got my job at Infosys, and here is where I give credit to Infosys and the leadership at that time, right? I very clearly told in my recruitment that I don't know technology. You are a technology company. I don't know even how to operate computers. When I was growing up, I worked on Word and PowerPoint, but I can't do it now. But I told them that I'm aware of this software, right? And I'm going to find it out, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to learn. So
Hmm.
they said, okay, you make me a promise that you're going to learn this, and and you can come and join us. So that also
Hmm.
kind of propelled my quest to get access to that software. And
Hmm.
of course, when I got it, I invested a lot of time on it, and there's so much, right? Like even right from basic typing to everything, I have to kind of learn on my own, and it took me about 4 5 months and
Hmm.
lots of midnight oil. But yeah, I was able to kind of do it. Something. I'm very proud that I was able to do it on my own just by reading up the manuals and the help menu.
Very nice. And then what happened next?
So then I joined Infosys, and for me, and I'll tell you, the mindset was my parents told, if they don't kick you out, you be there, right? As long as they can tolerate you, you'll be there. Because of course, I didn't knew technology, I didn't know much about it then, but yeah, I kind of said, okay, I'll give my best shot, right? Um, I'd learned technology. I was pretty good in that in their training and induction, except for a bit of computer skills. I was really ranked very high in their whole thing. But in the next 6 months, there was no manager who was ready to take me in his or her team. They all
Hmm.
kept citing various things. You know what? We are a global company, and this companies may not like having a blind person in our operations. And there was this equal opportunity in charge, Rama, and we ended up working together in Diok later. So we kept saying, okay, we're going to make sure, again, we're only going to target a mainstream role and not something like a receptionist or a desk operator, which was a few roles that a lot of people have seen with the blind in the past. And we kind of persisted. I got a role in HR shared services, and this was a role which, so basically a manager was ready to take that chance, right? And he took me in. He gave me a job. It was about this data entry for recruitment. I was good. My quality was good, but my quantity wasn't matching up. But during that time, I was able to suggest some changes and I was awarded for it. So they said, okay, this role doesn't suit him, but he has brains. So then they gave me a role called No Show, where you were supposed to contact abscond employees, those employees who just stopped coming. And I was supposed to kind of get them back, or at least ask them to come back and resign properly. Expectations from my predecessor and with me was, okay, you turn around 5 to 10%, we'll be very, very happy. And that kind of gave me an opportunity to showcase, and I was able to get like more than 40% people back. So that kind of, and I started uncovering a lot of uncomfortable truths around, managers not being sensitive. There were other facility problems. Some cases were really, really very complex, where even their client operation heads or the VPs couldn't solve. And when it came to me, I was able to kind of get that employee back. So that kind of attracted and kind of gave me an opportunity to present to the management council in my second year of work.
Right.
So yeah, and that led to me kind of growing, and then I was very soon leading a team of 20 people and like the whole employee life cycle at the back end. And then I joined FMS. After 3 years of attempts in CAT, I was able to kind of get through FMS. And there itself, again, there were many histories and stories. We talked about professors and faculty, right? While most of them were at least sensitive, if not outright cooperative, at least they were not rude to you. But there was one particular professor I keep saying, this one professor actually, when I went to ask help, he said, why do people like you do MBA? And especially in these organizations, he might be saying, from his all positivity or in a good corner. But the point is, it came out very rude for me, right? Like, he just like said, I can't help you guys. You shouldn't do. It's not a field for you guys. And I was like really, really taken aback with that comment. Of course, I never went back to him for any help, and I managed those subjects fairly well. And but yeah, that's the mindset that persisted even in some of the premier educational institute, right? Like, these are people who have traveled the world, possibly had exposure, and yet did this.
Yeah, so I mean, his view was that why do people like you study in premier institutions where there is possibly so much of pressure?
Yeah.
You shouldn't, right?
Yeah, possibly pressure, or it's not meant for you, or it could be like, again, it could be so many things, right? But the fact is, again, he never paid any attention or any support. He never extended any support to me or anybody else also, as far as I know. So I've been mentoring many of my juniors, and they all kind of have a similar perspective for that particular faculty.
How were your peers in FMS?
So I think, like everywhere else, first few months it took them a while for them to even understand what low vision is, right? Like, I would classify myself at that time as low vision. Again, either for everything, for them it was either blind or not blind. Now, this low vision they just couldn't understand that in the initial phases. As they understood my challenges, I think in most cases there is resistance, and then there is like some small group of people that you work with. uh, what turned around for me was there was this a few competitions, corporate competitions that I participated, and there was one really most coveted one, and I won the national, like the first the college round where both your senior, my batch and the senior batch participated, and me and my team won that, and then we all ended up winning. Even we were the first runner up at the nationals. This competition
Okay.
happened only in 6 colleges, right? A, B, C, FMS, and a couple of more. So
Hmm.
that kind of turned around things for me. They started taking me a little more seriously and gave me a little more respect
Hmm.
from them, right? And
Hmm.
then, of course, I eventually was also kind of got a chance to actively work in the Students' Council. I was the HR president of the HR Society and many other things. But yeah,
Yeah.
there was initial hesitance, uh, and there's always like, is he going to be burdened to my team? Is he just going to be that free rider piling on? Will he
Hmm.
contribute or not? There were those questions, but I think it took some time for them to understand, okay, what's my style of contributing to them.
Yeah. Yeah, because while I would say that I would not blame children, by
Hmm.
the time you are in college, you are no longer children.
Correct.
Yeah, so that's why the question.
Hmm.
And what I hear you say is that you had to prove your merit to your
Absolutely.
peers, which would not have been the case for your other peers who did not have low vision.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think there was one of my other friend, we always discuss this, as people with disability, we have to keep proving every step, every day. One mistake can be possibly very, very, damaging for our career, right? Oh, ये तो blind है, इससे तो एक zero किसी से extra डल गया है, he couldn't see that. अरे वो
हम्म
एक extra zero किसी से भी डल सकता है, right?
गलती तो किसी से भी हो सकती है.
किसी से भी हो सकती है, but because of a blindness or any other disability that any other person with disability has, it's always kind of zeroed in because of that person's condition.
हम्म
So every day you have to prove, and you have to kind of serve, establish yourself. It's something very similar, like how like women used to feel, say in late 90s or even early 2000s. Some many women even face that today, but
Okay.
it's very similar, right? And I always say, okay, we are today. I think disability is where say the women's right movement was in 1990s maybe or 80s.
Well said. Okay. So, Ankit, you also do a lot of work in the space of disability inclusion.
Mhm.
How and when did that start?
So this actually started when I was on bench. I told you 6 months in my initial Infosys days, I was not given any job. So I was working very closely with Ramachari, who's the equal opportunity head at Infosys back then. Now she kind of came from a social development sector, and she had worked with uh, NGOs in the past. So I started working with her. We set up a social enterprise in that 6 months. We kind of bonded up well, and then she said, "Why don't we start something and bring in this whole professionalism in the corporate, like a gap that say NGOs don't fill up, and we as a professional organization will be able to bring that to the sector." And I said,
Hmm.
wow, it's a great idea. And like, I come from a family of businessmen. And again, social services is never considered, is nowhere even in our radar, right?
Yeah.
But again, for me, the whole thought, the genesis within me was, okay, perhaps if at all I can help even change one person's life. I
Hmm.
struggled so much. Like, I never had information. I never had the platform. And, so much wasn't there. And if I could change a bit with my contribution, I'll say it will be really worth the while. And yeah, we started with DEOC, and we worked. Our HR manual that we worked with on CI is still considered as like one of the best literature as far as understanding the whole employee life cycle and how to induct people with disabilities in the organization. Uh, we worked with many other companies as far as doing the infra audit, HR audits, and helping work on the policy making. So that kind of helped. This also led me to be introduced to Mr. late Javed Abidi, who's like the pioneer of disability rights movement in India. And I worked, he kind of gave me opportunities to contribute on some policy level documents. And later on, I was also inducted in this national committee, which is which kind of does a lot of advocacy with the government. So when the RPWD Act, the first demand for the new law came from this committee to the government, and our inputs, we did provide a lot of inputs to the government on the bill. And yeah, later on, after my UN, I got a chance to work on the SDGs and data on disability. Kickstart cabs happened in between. And of course, now my most recent is the whole Friends for Inclusion, where we are working on this solution for the deaf people, which will convert your speech into sign language, Indian Sign Language. Uh, we are really, really hopeful that it will help people with deafness to get access to education, better employment, growth opportunities. So yeah, been working a lot on this, and I just kind of kept exploring. My thing was I don't want to restrict myself. If I can do something, I would want to do. And I was not gunning for a time. I have to do it now or by tomorrow or day after. Some of these projects took very, very long.
Yeah.
But yeah, you have to be persistent with it and believe in that idea.
And all of this is along with your full-time job.
Yes. All of this is along with a full-time job and a family. So I'm married. I have a 6-year-old kid. So, and I don't know where does that time come from, but it just happens. My wife and my kid and my parents, I think all of them have been a big, big supporter, and I've been guilty of stealing a lot of their time to many of these initiatives. But I think they've been also fully invested along with me, and I think all of them, including my 6-year-old, I think they try as much as possible to support me or help me in uh, in my initiatives, right?
Yeah. So, if you were to give a message to employers, what would your message be?
I think don't come with any preconceived notions. I think even now there's so many success stories. We often come with okay, yaar, if blind hai ya deaf hai, he must be great with data entry. He must be great with something X Y Z. I think enter a conversation with a person with disability, with openness. Uh, Listen to them, collaborate with them. Okay, what works for them, because we often tend to kind of, we are very prescriptive in nature, and I definitely want to say corporates have come a long way. A lot of them have started hiring people with disabilities, but you need to be a little more risk taking also in your approach, right? And you need to start thinking beyond just giving them jobs, right?
Mm.
Think about their career ladder. How many, report metrics like how many people are in your mid and top management with disabilities. I think those are conversations that we need to evolve, and corporates need to kind of also uh, take cognizance of. It's not enough that you just give them jobs now. You know, I think people with disabilities have proved their mettle. They are a great asset, but their career aspirations also need to be kind of taken into account.
Lovely. And what would be your message to people with disabilities?
I think with people with disability, I would always say, okay, firstly, accept yourself. Only when you're going to accept yourself is when you'll be able to find solution to your constraints.
Hmm.
Without accepting, you'll only going to mull over, अरे मेरे साथ ये problem है, I can't do this, I can't do this. Understand what is your situation, And then only when you're going to accept your situation, you're going to start finding solution or the workaround. Today, I possibly can do anything and everything that I always desired except for driving. And maybe someday with the driverless car, even I'll do that also. But apart from that, I think I feel I travel the world. As long as I have my mobile phone with me, I know I'm not going to get lost. I have access to my currency. I have access to Ubers and the Olas of the world. I can travel and manage on my own. So you need to find solutions on your constraints, and that only happens after you accept. And number two, you have to work really hard. There's no shortcut to success. We discussed how at every stage you need to prove yourself. You will get some wonderful people in your journey who will partner in your growth journey. But that can only happen when you're going to work hard and you're going to reciprocate that gesture with your performance. So I think these are the two main ideas that I want to leave with people with disabilities.
Thank you so much, Ankit. All I can say is that please keep doing the good work, because as you said, that even if we can make a change to one person's life, even if we can make a contribution to one person's life, if we today with this video touch someone's heart, someone's mind, make someone rethink their approach, I think we would have made a difference. So
Right.
thank you so much for your time. And I love the way you just kept smiling throughout the conversation.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for candidly sharing your journey, your story, your thoughts, your perspectives. They were very, very insightful. And for our audience, please do share this video forward. It's extremely insightful, it's very eye opening, it's very meaningful, and it will make an impact to someone's life. So, till then, we'll be back next week with yet another conversation. And till then, please stay safe. Goodbye for
Thank,
now.
thank you, Sonika, for having me here. It was wonderful. And all the best for the rest of the series.
And we'll be in touch, Ankit.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Bye bye.
Bye.